crucial moment in the process of scientific discovery. The dramatic advances in molecular biology throughout the 20th century culminated in the sequencing of the human genome and increasing understanding of cell physiology and cytology, the ability to culture cells in the laboratory. These studies were accomplished by breaking down organic systems into their component parts, studying them as biochemical processes in a test tube. Now, however, as we move on from genomics to proteomics, which is the study of the proteins that are coded by the genes, we move on from that to discoveries in developmental biology. We have now returned to the study of whole living beings. We spent almost a century studying their parts, but now we're studying the organisms. And when applied to human biology, this inquiry reopens the most fundamental questions concerning the relationship between the material parts and the moral meaning of developing life. The current conflict over embryonic stem cells is just the first of a whole range of difficult controversies that will require us to define with clarity and precision the moral boundaries we're seeking to defend. Human-animal hybrids, parthenogenesis, the activation of eggs, and projects involving the laboratory production of tissues and organs. These and a wide range of other emerging technologies will continue to challenge our definitions of human life. And these are not questions for science alone, but for the full breadth of human wisdom and human experience. The scientific arguments for going forward are strong. The convergence of these advancing technologies is delivering unprecedented powers for research into the most basic questions in human development. There are 150,000 congenital defects born every year, and we could perhaps make some advance in that. And beyond that, the study of stem cells will inform our understanding of such basic biological processes that will help us treat a lot of diseases, and then the cells themselves may be useful as therapeutic agents. Yet from a moral perspective, there are serious considerations. This is an 8-cell embryo on the sharp tip of a pin. It's important to acknowledge the many projects for which human embryos could be used. Beyond their destruction for the procurement of embryonic stem cells, some fear the industrial-scale production of living human embryos for a wide range of research in natural development, toxicology, and drug testing. Lord Alton, a member of the House of Lords in the UK, told me that they estimate that over 100,000 human embryos have already been used in scientific experimentation in Britain. And that's clearly just the very tiniest tip of the iceberg for the future. Beyond that, of course, is a concern about the commodification and commercialization of eggs and embryos, and worry about the implication of ongoing research to create an artificial endometrium, a kind of artificial womb that would allow the extracorporeal gestation of cloned embryos to later stages for the production of more advanced cells, tissues, and possibly organs. Furthermore, from a social perspective and from a political perspective, we have a very deep dilemma. We have a patchwork of policies on the national level, which, if it's kept that way long-term, will result in a situation where some people will enter the hospital upset that the cures they thought should be there are not, or others will enter the hospital with moral qualms about the foundations on which the research foundations on which their cures have been developed. What was once the sanctuary of compassionate care at the most vulnerable and sensitive moments, namely the hospital and the medical research centers, has become an arena of controversy and conflict. Clearly, both sides of this difficult debate are defending important human goods, and both of these goods are important to all of us. A purely political solution will leave our civilization bitterly divided, eroding the social support and sense of noble purpose that's essential for public support of biomedical science. Yet this support is crucial if we are to go forward. The way this conflict is going forward in the political arena, and I know more about that than I ever wanted to, the way it's going forward is damaging to both religion and to our larger sense of cultural unity. What's needed is to step back and think about this in a constructive and creative way and see if there isn't a way forward. So what I want to do is just take a moment to lay out exactly what are the moral concerns that are at the foundation of this conflict, and then I want to just take another moment to describe what I think might meet those moral concerns while allowing the science to go forward. In reflecting on this issue, the President's Council, on which I serve, produced 2 years ago a white paper that laid out a range of proposals, 3 in fact that we recommended, that would allow us to go forward without overriding objections or the concerns, goals of anybody. As the author of one of these proposals, altered nuclear transfer, I want to briefly describe that. But first, what is the basis for the moral concerns, which roughly half of our country feels very strongly about? Any evaluation of the moral significance of human life must take into account the full procession of continuity and change that is essential for its development. With the act of conception, a new life is initiated with a distinct genetic endowment that organizes and guides the growth of a unique and unrepeatable human being. The gametes, the sperm and the egg, although alive as cells, they're not living beings. They are instrumental organic agents of the parents. The joining of the gametes brings into existence an entirely different kind of entity, a living human organism. With regard to fundamental biological meaning and moral significance, the act of fertilization is a leap from zero to everything. In both structure and function, the zygote, the one-celled embryo, and subsequent embryonic stages differ from all other cells or tissues of the body. They contain within themselves the organizing principle for the full development of a human being. The very word organism implies organization, an overarching principle that binds the parts and processes of life into a harmonious whole. As a living being, an organism is an integrated, self-developing, and self-maintaining unity under the governance of an immanent plan. For an embryonic organism, this implies an inherent potency, an engaged and effective potential with a drive in the direction of the mature form. By its very nature, an embryo is a developing being. Its wholeness is defined by both its manifest expression and its latent potential. It is the phase of human life in which the whole, as the unified organismal principle of growth, precedes and produces its organic parts. The philosopher Robert Joyce explains, living beings come into existence all at once and then gradually unfold to themselves and to the world what they already, but only incipiently, are. To be a human organism is to be a whole living member of the species Homo sapiens, with a human present and a human future evident in the intrinsic potential for the manifestation of the species' typical form. Joyce continues, no living being can become anything other than what it already essentially is. It is this implicit whole with its inherent potency that endows the embryo with continuity of human identity from the moment of conception and, from this perspective, therefore, inviolable moral status. With respect to fundamental moral status, therefore, the human being is an embodied being whose intrinsic dignity is inseparable from its full procession of life and always present at its varied stages of emergence. This conclusion is consistent with 2,500 years of medical practice. As recently as 1948, the physician's oath in the Declaration of Geneva, echoing the enduring traditions of Hippocratic medicine, proclaimed, "I will maintain the utmost respect for human life from the time of conception." So where does that leave us? With a strange dilemma, even if one does not agree with that moral analysis. A great many of our fellow citizens do. Is there a way to go forward without overriding these objections? These very reasonable objections, not objections built on some kind of abstract belief structure, but reasonable scientific interpretation. President's Council thinks so, and we put forward a series of proposals